innovators behind it. And we lead AI labs. We want builders, innovators, and soon we're also expanding to hubs around the world. So we help innovate and build AI. What is the Open Interpreter Project? Open Interpreter Project is locally running implementation of OpenAI codes. So basically, in simple terms, you just give it a command to your terminal in your laptop, and it does it, such as natural languages interface in your terminal. Sorry, such as like, for example, run for me data analysis, and it will run it for you. Create content, and it will do it for you. So yeah. And for this hackathon challenge, we have explore Open Interpreter to simplify your daily tasks and learn more about the technology. Develop a user-focused solution that it streamlines all your own job or your daily routine, leveraging the power of Open to make your life easier and more efficient. Moving on, we have the technology. And with the technology we have here, get yourself started in the AI tutorials. You can go in our platform and you can just run through it, our GitHub links. And and coming up next, we have Killian Lucas. Killian is actually the creator of this amazing technology and project. So Killian, how are you?
I'm doing very good. How are you doing?
Good. It's nice to have you here. So fun fact, Killian was one of our participants in our previous hackathons, and we saw his technology, which was interesting to do a micro hackathon with. And he was like, hey guys, I was participating, and it was such an amazing moment for us and for Killian, I believe too, for us to join and build a hackathon together. Killian, would you like to tell us anything before you go on stage?
Yes, yeah. Oh yeah, so what does going on stage mean? Is it like...
You're on stage now.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I'm the creator of Open Interpreter. I'm so happy to be doing a hackathon with Lab. This is like one of the most exciting days in the history of Open Interpreter because it started out really as like, it's a terminal package kind of. It's funny that it blew up as much as it did for people that are using it because it's a pip package. Like, it's kind of insane that an open source pip package that runs in your terminal is like, I have people who are like trying to install Python just to use it. It's something that I feel like is kind of capable of making it so that non-technical people don't have to learn all these technical tools to be able to do stuff on their computer. And yet I really want to transition it into a developer tool. I really feel like this is actually for developers. This is actually for hackers. And so I'm really, really excited to kind of begin that stage of taking Open Interpreter and making it into something that you can build into your applications. And right way to think about that. By the way, is this kind of like the beginning of like I can kind of go into demos and share my screen and stuff, or
you can introduce yourself, and now you can go also on the demo and go to the speaking and so on. So okay, now cool. We can let you go and you can start like sharing your screen as well. So yeah, Killian, the stage is yours, and you can share your screen and show it how it works to everyone. So yeah.
So before I get into that, I kind of want to just go over the philosophy of Open Interpreter, which is probably
I thought we were going to do that, and then we were going to share your screen. Yeah, exactly. But I really want to know it.
So, and this will make sense, I think, to people who have been building with AI agents. These things now have been around for like a year and a half. The earliest stuff. AI agents powered by OpenAI that run code. Sharif Shamim was doing that, and I forget, it was called like DLib or something, I don't know, on Twitter, like in 2021. This has been around for a long time, and people have been trying to build like, okay, the idea of a language model that writes something, just for anybody, I'm sure that people who are here kind of have some awareness, but I'll just give you the basics of it, which is that like, okay, language models can generate text, but we want them to be able to do things in the world. So an approach that you can use for that is that they generate text that's like, with like LangChain or something that would be like, it says an action, and then they have some inputs to the action. And then we catch that, and then we go plug it into some system, and then we bring that text back. We bring the output of it back. The premise of Open Interpreter, the core philosophy of it is all this AI agent toolkits and complexity, even like around planning, but especially around the idea of like, making tools for language models. We've done this before. We already have code. To me, code has been decades and decades of humanity has gone into figuring out the best way to turn language into action. So we already have this tool that exists out there, which is if this thing can run code, if it can write code and then run it, most critically, this is about the running of the code. You have access to all of the tools that you could dream of. I mean, all you're really doing by making like a toolkit and trying to feed it into a language model is some subset of what's already out there as packages. And there are huge limitations with like having it use, like, for example, OpenAI function calling is one of these things too. You know, that's like an attempt to try to make language models control computers, and toolkits are too. But once it runs the function, or once it does the action, you get the data, and then that's like, it has to look at the data and then like pass it back into the next function or things like that. Like, we already have all the tools that exist for, well, it should create the function, run it, and then save it to a variable. And then it should, it can run conditionals on that, and it can like move data around in the way that it's familiar with. Lean on the strengths of these systems is really like the core philosophy of this. And to me, that's letting them run code. So Open Interpreter is an open source attempt to make this kind of connective tissue between language models and computers. It's to bridge the like non-deterministic, flexible world of language models and get them to just run code, to just use the deterministic, fixed, powerful computers that we've been building for so many decades. And the way that it does that is by simply giving it one function that it can run, and that's called exec, just execute. And all it takes is a language of the code that it's going to run, and then the code. That's it. It's really simple. And if you look into the code, that's why I'm really excited. I hope you get to hack on it, kind of. But to me, yeah, that's very much the core philosophy of Open Interpreter. A big one is code. Just let these things run code. They will be able to control machines much better. I mean, we designed machines to be controlled through code for humans, so it's not really any different. The other kind of philosophy axiom about Open Interpreter to me is actually that there's no planning mechanism. And I'm excited to see some of you build it. So folks have, and I'll show you some of the demos of things that other people have built on Open Interpreter. But I'm not even convinced, honestly, that like complicated planning mechanisms really need to be here for like incredible things to get done. By just having the context windows get larger, you can have something that, in the system message of Open Interpreter, it says, you have short-term memory. Please write your plan and then recap it at each step. I think a valid, by the way, hackathon entry to this, which the grand prize is $500. I'll tell you about kind of the selection. It would honestly be to find out a really, really good system message. I would even be like into that, because I think about like, you could implement these planning mechanisms of orchestration and stuff just by telling it to behave in a certain way. And all the like complicated stuff of like an orchestrator agent and like that there would be a task list that it does. None of that is an Open Interpreter. You can build it on top of it, but honestly, another one of these kind of core tenets of Open Interpreter to me, and why it's been so interpretable to look at it working, is that it all runs in one context thing. I mean, literally, it's working like kind of like OpenAI ChatGPT plugins, where you can see it writing text, and then it writes a code block, and then it runs it, and it looks at the output, and then it just keeps going. It's all in one strain. So to me, these are the two kind of core tenets of it. And underneath all that is minimalism. And you're going to see that's actually kind of one of the reasons why I want to pick the winner is simplicity is kind of one of the things that is important to me. So that's kind of the philosophy of Open Interpreter. Now, something interesting about the fact that it's running locally, that it runs the code locally, as opposed to OpenAI's product, which by the way, runs it in a sandbox. This one runs the code actually on your computer, is that you are the user. So when you write apps that build with Open Interpreter and you deploy them to people's actual machines that they're using it, you are the user. You are the authentication key into all these different services. This is another problem with toolkits with AI agent frameworks, is that, God, it's like most of the work is like, how do I set up Tweepy, like to connect to Twitter? How do I set up, like, it's ridiculous. Like you need to go through so much authentication to get this thing to do anything. But if you just start running the code right on the computer, you bypass all of that. This thing can access your calendar because it can run Java, it can run AppleScript if you're on a Mac. It can access your email, same reason, it can run AppleScript. It can open a browser, and the stuff you're logged into, it's logged into. So thinking about the benefits of a tool that's running the code locally, and what can you build if you just forget about this authentication problem, just build cool stuff that's passing data around between your apps and controlling people's computers from their computer, bypassing all the authentication mess. I think that's one of the coolest things about this. And you're going to see here in a second some of the things people have been building that use those principles. This one doesn't actually. I'm going to skip ahead because I would love to show you one that does use those principles. This is this guy Mike Bird. He's incredible, and he built a.
Okay, I've got Open Interpreter running on my phone.
A version of Open Interpreter that is running on an Android phone. This would be such a cool thing to think. Where can you take this thing? What devices can you run Open Interpreter on? So it's just you're just talking to it in a very much like ChatGPT. You can treat it very much like ChatGPT. What is my current battery level? And it returns the battery level because it's running code right on the Android phone. And he's actually speaking it into it. Please take a photo with the front camera.
Of saying please to the AI.
And this was amazing, and this was really cool. And he opened Spotify. He did a second demo a few days later, which was
hello, I have
which was actually passing data around between apps more so. So kind of doing stuff that like no voice assistant on these phones can do. This one is, obviously I guess you can do that. You can ask for directions and it opened up an intent link. Writing a tweet, and then it generates an intent link so the person can click it and then tweet something. This was my favorite. These last two, he asks for a QR code. So this is something that would need to be an app, right? This is like an insane departure from what we're used to with applications. Because just by asking in this moment for a QR code, he sort of has created an app right here. And just by me telling it to you and by him showing it to us, he sort of has shared this app. Like it's you now can like go on your Android phone and download this. And by the way, on the GitHub repo, there's a guide called Run on Android. It's at the very top. And if you want to see how he did this and you want to do something similar for the hackathon, that is how you can learn how to do it. And he makes a QR code for some link, I think for his own Twitter account. Yep, makes a QR code, test it out on his phone. Thinking about this thing as like it's writing bespoke apps just in front of you, just whatever you need kind of in that moment. I never need to like convert files ever again because I can actually just like go open up my terminal and be like, hey, can you convert all these PDFs on my desktop or whatever into Word docs or anything, like, because all that stuff is already out there in open sources packages to be able to convert that, and it can just run code. Okay, the last demo of this one too was that he hand wrote a note.
Terminal file system.
And he tells the Android phone where the thing is, where the note is, or like he takes a picture of it and then he tells it like, hey, my most recent photo or whatever. I think Termux has like a file system, so he puts like the file name in. And he said, can you try to extract the data from it? It installs PyTesseract and it does it. And it reads like text to speech. Like none of this is native things going on. This is just literally an app built on the fly by this thing, by it running code from him just having like a natural language command. So that's cool. That's really cool that it runs there. You can think about all the kinds of amazing things that you can do with this kind of thing where it could just like be writing bespoke apps. This is it writing a Pomodoro app. So I just say, literally, can you make me a Pomodoro timer app? And it writes HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to do it. So I'm very interested in this idea of like, okay, because you are the user, because it has access to your like photos, because it has access to your Twitter and your Spotify and whatever, and most amazingly with AppleScript on Macs, which is like really unusually powerful, that you kind of keep bypass all the authentication stuff. That's really cool. Another cool thing about this, I think, is like, okay, what are other interfaces you could use to talk to this thing? So this is a VTuber. This is somebody who made on YouTube Live a VTuber that you can talk to and ask for charts and ask it to browse the web and ask it to do this kind of stuff. Like, this is a really creative way, I think, of just accessing the core. Like, I mean, it's literally just running Open Interpreter and then passing the text back and passing the stuff. And I'm going to show you really quickly how to do this, by the way, because it's much simpler than you'd think. But to me, this idea of like, okay, you are the user. There's cool authentication stuff that you can bypass, and then also just like, what are other ways we can talk to this thing? Can you make a voice interface, or a vision interface like this is? Those are, I think, two really really exciting avenues to explore with this technology. I'm just going to show you real quick too that the way that you build with this thing is super super easy. You are literally going to be dealing with a Python generator. That when you talk to it, so trying to think like, what is the simplest possible way to build kind of an interface with a computer and make it easy for developers to build on top of. So to me, I think this a Python generator is the way to go. And I'll show you in a collab what this actually looks like. Actually, I might as well just pull it up over here. And by the way, this is an implementation of Jarvis. It's an implementation of a voice interface, which we'll actually demo at the end. But you can see, like, literally, you can just be like, for chunk in interpreter.chat. And we have great docs on this. Again, they're at the top of the repo. You could turn display on or off. That just would display a nice little thing in the thing, in the terminal. But just set stream to true, and then you can actually be pulling tokens out of this thing. So let me kind of go over the anatomy of what you're going to be pulling out of this. For chunk in interpreter.chat, we say, what's 34 divided by 24? And then it starts emitting tokens. And these are of three different types. Well, four if you count language. First, it says, hey, I'm going to run some code. It's going to be called Python. It's going to be in the language of Python. And then it starts emitting the code chunk by chunk. So you can imagine if you're building an interface for this thing, this is beautiful streaming, interface. Just say if it's coming from code, if the object has code in it, then put it into a code block and start syntactically highlighting it with Python. Okay, it's done with that. Then it goes executing. It's saying, I'm going to execute this code now. And then it just this same thing, the same object starts now emitting line by line the code output. It even actually tells you what line of code is running. In this case, there's only one line of code, but that means that you can highlight the active line of code. And do any other cool UI stuff with that. Okay, but so it says, I'm going to run this code block. This is the code bit by bit. I'm going to execute it. Here is the output of it. And then it just starts sending message blocks out. And this is very much, if you have dealt with OpenAI streaming responses, you will know how to use Open Interpreter by heart. It's actually even simpler because there's no like choices, delta, all that mess. It's literally just a generator that emits code, output, or messages. And there's some nice stuff in between to kind of let you know what's coming. But yeah, that's really, I thought it was the simplest way to implement this. Is like you just put in a string and you just start pulling out messages, code, and code output. Very, very easy to build on top of. So that's all that's going on in here. And actually, I should probably link to this thing because this is open source too. Actually, if you want to go to the Twitter, this VTuber. So if you want to see how this person built it. By the way, how much time do I have? I know that I think we were on like a 20-minute thing, right? I mean, because it's 9:32, so I don't want to go over.
Hey, hi, yes.
Do you know how much time we have? Is it just like we'll keep going?
You have 30 minutes.
Oh, 13 minutes?
30.
Oh, 30 minutes. Wait, how much time do we have left though?
30 minutes left.
Oh, 30. Oh, we're stopping at 10.
Yeah, we have 1 hour and already 30 minutes passed, and we have 30 more minutes. Perfect.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay. So that's some of the cool demos that you can build with this thing. Was there one I missed? Yeah, this is just raw Open Interpreter, but I thought this was so cool. This is on like the first day it was released that somebody was like, hey, could you download this YouTube URL and cut the clip from this timestamp to this timestamp and transcribe it, translate it, and then burn the subtitles in. Seriously think of just whatever can be composed in code you can ask this thing to do. And it's going to write the code, but most critically, it's going to run it. I keep emphasizing that because there's a lot of tools out there that write code and do a very good job at it, like cursor.sh, and Aider, I think, is another one. But the main differentiator about Open Interpreter is that it's running the code. We're trying to figure out how to actually run code with this thing. and have it so that you don't have to handle that. I would love to actually show you. Yeah, so the demo, all these, by the way, resources, you can go onto the GitHub repo or go to openinterpreter.com and then go to the GitHub repo and you'll get access to all these. And there's a bunch of guides and, again, great documentation. But I kind of want to show you, this one because Payne and I were talking about this. We're both have a bit of musicality in us,
and it's actually more brilliant. I'm not gonna lie, like I was mind blown.
Yeah, so I dropped out of high school to be to make dubstep. I'll just be honest. I did not think when I made Open Interpreter that I did not anticipate the applications for this thing for real work, like that guy subtitling this video and doing all this stuff. I kind of am approaching this like, for non-technical people, which up until very recently, I was a totally non-technical person. Started learning to code in 2020 when GPT-3 came out. That was when I got my GED and went back to college to be a middle school science teacher. And then I dropped out of that to start learning to code and building AI. But I didn't have, it was all very, very scary to me to be learning to code and learning how to like learn these really technical tools, even though I really wanted to make impressive creative work. So a lot of the reason why I built Open Interpreter was to do things like this, to do kind of creative things. So I'm going to scroll down to one of these examples. These are some simple ones, and they're really great to look at to just see how kind of the format of how this thing is like sending messages and then sending code blocks and running the code blocks. But check this out. This is a YouTube link to an animation. So I used Open Interpreter to make a music video. And I pasted in a YouTube link, and then I asked it to do some things to it. So I asked it to swap out each of the frame actually with kind of a hand-drawn version of it. But check this out. I wish I knew you wanted me. What you do. This is a music, so that could go on as long as I wanted to because it's running on my own computer. And I have a version somewhere that's like the full 3-minute long music video. There's no timeouts. It's not a sandbox code execution thing. You can actually run massive workflows and just ask it to do it. So let me show you how I did that, what I asked it to do. I said I want to edit a video, so it's in 12 frames per second, and each frame is redrawn. And then I just pasted in the code actually from like Replicate is the service that lets you, run all these different machine learning models, including this one called ControlNet. I just pasted it in. Like I just went to the, every Replicate machine learning page has like a little code snippet you can take. And I just said, hey, use this, please. I'm already logged into Replicate. So there's the like user authentication thing, right? That I don't need to like build something to connect it to Replicate. It's running code on my machine. So if my Replicate API key is set, then it can use Replicate. And I said, please download this video, use this particular part of it, then reduce it to 12 frames per second and replace them with hand-drawn ones like Claymation and Neuron on a Table and stuff like that. And you can see here what it did. It made a plan first. It was like, okay, we'll do YouTube DLP for downloading the YouTube video, and we use Replicate. And it just got started. Downloads the YouTube video, pulls it out, sets the frames per second to 12 like I asked, and then checks. And you can see, by the way, we a lot of this is really guided by the system message, which is really, really easy to access. You can just go interpreter.system message, that right there. If you print that, you can actually see what it's being asked to do. And it's, it's being told like, hey, you're going to be running code in a user's machine. Try to make plans and then do them, try to run small code blocks and just a bunch of things that I've learned from like trying to get these things to do code interpretation properly, which is not really an out-of-the-box language model thing. And it made that music video. And by the way, yeah, so actually this is kind of an interesting thing. Just for fun, you could imagine a function that takes a YouTube URL and just does this. Right? So it just takes in a YouTube URL, and then you're pretty much just making an F string function that says, hey, interpreter, animates this URL with the following steps and then save them to this particular thing. And you will have just made a function that can make any YouTube video into that music video. So that's kind of a, I don't know, that's totally an avenue to explore with Open Interpreter, is like, how can we actually kind of limit the scope of what it's doing to like get the power of it into my app in a way that's like a little more controlled. Create documents. There's a bunch of other stuff it can do. You can check out this demo notebook. It's the first one at the top. Can you slow and reverb this song? This is one of my favorites. Probably instantly recognize this. Super cool. Just took a YouTube link. Okay, so that's a lot of fun. Just the raw Open Interpreter demo of using it, but how do you build with it? So this is now, I'm going to get into like the tutorial portion of this. This is Jarvis. I built this on stream, like I think a week ago, with a bunch of people. Which, by the way, you should join the Open Interpreter Discord and come to the house parties where we build stuff like this all the time. They happen every week. And we had one 2 days ago. But this one we built either last week or the week before. And it is a voice interface for Open Interpreter, two-way. So because it's so easy to expose the core functionality of Open Interpreter and to play with this thing, we can actually just use this to pass in something that we transcribe. So what this Colab notebook does is it actually uses Whisper and 11 labs. So what it's doing is it's going to take my microphone input and transcribe what I say to it, pass into Open Interpreter, and then it's going to give life to it, give a voice to it with 11 labs, and it's going to tell me all the things it's doing. Now, we don't have it voice the code that it runs, we just have it voice the message that it runs. Do remember to restart your runtime if you want to play with this after installing. That's always going to be the case on Google Colab. By the way, is my screen showing? Is everything normal? Or is this insane?
Everything looks perfect so far.
Okay, nice. And then, yeah, so let me actually just show you what it looks like at the end. Let me cut to the chase. We're using Gradio for this, by the way, which is a really great way to just build interfaces that I could even share. You can now go to this link and use it. So check this out. What time is it in Seattle? Submit it. You can see, look how fast it transcribed that, by the way. To find the current time in Seattle, we will use the following plan. So
to find the current time in Seattle, we will use the following plan. 1. Install the PITS library, which helps in time zone manipulations if it's not already installed.
That's a great way to pronounce PITS. I do like that.
2. Use datetime library in Python to get the current time and convert it into Seattle's time zone,
So,
Pacific time zone.
by the way, it's running
3.
every single sentence. It's
Return
sending
the
it out
result to
11
the
labs
user.
and then sending it back.
Now let's first check if the PITS library is already installed.
I know.
This can be done using pips freeze command, which lists all installed packages.
Me when I ask my friend what time it is.
If the library is not installed, we will install it. If it is
Okay.
already installed, we will proceed to get the current Seattle time.
Beautiful. Wow, look how fast it wrote that code and then ran it. You see the main bottleneck
It
here
appears
is
that
actually
the PITS
11 labs.
package is not installed.
I
Let's
love the
proceed
tone
with
that was
installing
set
it.
with. Okay, so one of the best, something that you could do
It appears the PITS package has been successfully installed.
would be to work on getting to stream the voice.
Now we
and
will get the current time in Seattle's time zone, which is Pacific time zone.
and the God, look how fast it writes code. See, it can write the text really quickly, but then it's sending it out to.
Current time in Seattle, Pacific time zone, is 9:43 on October 12th, 2023.
So it is, sir. And I could keep going. I could ask it for, last 10 BBC News articles. It's great at doing that, and a bunch of other stuff. But it's. I mean, that's insane. And I kind of want to show you just how little code it took to implement this. The vast majority of it is just like, okay, here's the transcribe function. and then kind of some funny Gradio stuff to do with like getting the history to go. But literally the entirety of interacting with Open Interpreter is from here to here. So we built a full-on like her style, Jarvis style voice interface in essentially this much code, which is just passing in the message, which was transcribed, streaming it, and then, if it's a message, then we do actually want to say it out loud. If it's code, then we're not going to say it out loud. We just render it to the Gradio interface. And this is all, you can go take a look at this. It's called the Voice Interface Collab, and it's at the very top of the repository if you go to openinterpreter.com. So that's really cool. Yeah, this is the entirety of the code, except for the setup stuff up there, obviously. And it's unreasonably powerful for how simple it is. We didn't have to build tools to connect it to all these different services. It already has it because it's running code. So this also, by the way, is the core of this. So if you kind of look into what the VTubers central thing is, minus the voice interface that's what's going on inside this VTuber. I actually think Tag Nike did a WebSocket server. Server. That's something I wanted to share with you, actually. That's one of the coolest demos. And actually, we could end on that. I kind of thought that this was going to be a Discord call where I could see people, where I could hear people. And I was actually going to ask for somebody's phone number for this. But maybe no, I can't ask for your phone number, Hanid, can I? Okay, let me tell you what it is that I'm trying to do here. Morrissey is this guy who built something called the Open Interpreter iMessage server. He has a Mac Mini, and he's using it as like the body for Open Interpreter. So he just set it up at home, and he gave it an iCloud account, and he set up Open Interpreter on it, and he built this thing, the Open Interpreter iMessage server, which just receives text messages. So we can text that iCloud number, a record account, whatever. I think you text iCloud accounts with emails, actually. And then you can control Open Interpreter. So this one is running on my laptop. So what I can do is I can say, hey, trust that when this number texts you, you can just go ahead and carry out that command. Now, what is amazing about setting it up with its own iCloud account is that he's shared reminders lists with it. So it can run AppleScript to add things to his reminders list. He can be out texting it, say, add this to my reminders list. Can you now start checking those things off my reminders list? If it needs to like go do research or something, because this thing can open Selenium, it can browse the web. And you can just be, this is like the HQ of Open Interpreters back at his house, and he can be communicating with it via text. And I set it up on this thing just this morning, and I'm like, what music is in my iTunes library? Can you play this song for me? Can you set my volume to whatever? Because it can run AppleScript, so it can control all these things. It can access my calendar. It can access my reminders. It can access my notes. So I was blown away by this, and it's a really, really little code. You can see. So this is also at the top of the repo. I think it's called Morrissey's Mac server, maybe. But it is literally, the majority of this code is literally just like, getting the last 5 contacts from your iMessages, getting the latest message from that contact, sending a message, and then literally it's just polling over and over. It's just polling over and over until it gets that, and then, once it gets a message, it processes it, which involves sending it to Open Interpreter. What's really cool about this too, by the way, is that it actually texts back every sentence at a time, or actually I think it's every paragraph at a time. So it feels really, it's not this experience of like you text it and then it takes forever for it to write its whole big thing and then it reports back to you. It immediately tells you what it's up to, like within like a couple seconds. I kind of want to try it out, but I'm using my phone as my camera, so I don't have a phone. I hoped that someone would be through it. There's not a number that you have, that would be like easy for us to try this, is there? I can ask my friend. Worst case, I think she's asleep, but that's too much to ask. Okay, well, try this out. It's at the top of the repo. And God, yeah, there's really no way we can try it out, is there? Because my phone's up there. I really hope you try it out because it's a really, really cool experience to be texting with this thing and having it use your computer. And again, you can have it like, hey, I tried this earlier too, like use Selenium to open up a web browser and then go to YouTube and look this up and click the first link. I have my own personal assistant now, and it took what? 150 lines of code. This is early days. This came out last month. Somebody built a Raycast extension. Blew me away. Because you're in Raycast, you have the universal invocation. You hit a key thing, and then it pops up. This is early days. You are one of the first people in the world to use this technology. And I kind of want to end by just talking about, one, the hackathon today and how that's going to go, and two, the future of this technology. So to me, the idea of making a universal interface between language models and computers is one of the best things you could be working on right now that you could do for AI. Because to me, it's, again, like, I guess I've said this a lot of times now, but like, we sort of left behind all of the incredible work that people did building computers by not giving them to language models. Language models are kind of like pre-information age right now. If you ask them to do something, they'll think about it and then try to do it. And there's some shitty ways we have of working with toolkits to get them to do stuff. Just let them run code. Let them use a computer to the full extent that you get to use your computer. You would never judge a person's ability based on what they could do without a computer. It's an essential human tool. And to me, Open Interpreter is this attempt, it's MIT licensed, to just really open this up and make it so that folks can be building applications where language models have a computer. I can't imagine a more exciting thing to be working on right now and to be building with. And in case you feel like you've kind of, one attempt at this, probably the most popular attempt at this, is OpenAI's functions. And just to give you a hint at kind of the future of Open Interpreter is we want folks to be able to pass in their own functions, and then it'll actually execute in a sandboxed Python environment, still locally, but only being able to execute those functions. Right now, it can run arbitrary code, so it's great for things that you want to build something cool that is on your computer. But if you want to publicly release it, that's a little bit harder to justify. I mean, that VTuber did it, and it went fantastically. But assume that takes probably a little bit of moderation, so that people aren't like, "Hey, list all your environment variables," or something like that. So we want to make it so that this thing is a replacement for OpenAI functions. That anytime you want a language model to be able to interact with an external system, it's just a no-brainer to reach for Open Interpreter. Because we've solved this problem, and we're working really hard on this to try to make something that is easy for you to develop with, and simple, and exposes the full foundational capabilities of a computer to a language model. And by limiting the amount of functions that you can run by having like interpreter.functions and passing in like functions and modules and things, which is going to be coming up next. It's the next big update. You could imagine building a Copilot that's publicly facing in like 20 lines of code. Just give it the functions to run particular things, to get customer data, or to check just anything to interact with an external system. That to me is the future of this. there's really exciting things to think about too in terms of retrieval augmented generation. So one thing that a lot of people have played with that's been really fun is like, oh, can I get this thing to know my code base? I will say, by the way, that like to me, it's not. Actually, I don't know if time. We don't need to go into that. I'm going to go into kind of the Hackathon, what's going on today. First of all, I'm going to be on call. I don't know how we're going to do this, and I don't know how many people are here and what the scale this is, but I'm available all day. Just give me a call. I think that we can have like a Calendly link or something. I don't know, but I would love to help you if you're struggling any amount with it, or just want some ideas or want to kind of run it by me. Anything. I would love to be there to help out. My good friend Ty Fiaro is also going to be there for some of those calls. There is a $500 prize. And I think the way that we decided it would work is that it'd be community votes up until the top 5. And then I'm going to pick from those top 5. And what I am going to be picking based on is completeness, vision, and simplicity. To me, these are like the core things about Open Interpreter. So completeness, you got to write something that runs. It has to actually run and work. Or, to whatever degree that's going to affect your completeness score. Vision is, what is this grand vision that you have for this thing? And I'm excited by narrow applications. So don't think that means it needs to be general, but like, I would love to see you really dream. And then simplicity. And to me, this is what makes Open Interpreter special, is that it is simple. And so if you build something where I've had these ideas coming in that are just like lots of complicated things, I would love for it to be simple and clean. I think a lot of the stuff that we've seen today is actually really simple. Just some ideas, by the way, real quick. RAG system. There's a great RAG repo at the top, or a collab at the top of the notebook. It's called RAG Collab, and it shows you all the retrieval augmented generation features. There's already some stuff built into Open Interpreter you can use. You can imagine, like, what can this thing control? So if it can run code, could it run code that controls a robot? Could it run code that controls, what can it control? Voice and video interfaces. Voco.dev lets you use a phone to communicate with language models. I imagine something like that would be really cool. And then also, multi-agent systems I'm really interested in. So the idea of you could have an interpreter talk to another interpreter. You could have orchestrator interpreters, or you could have interpreters on the same level as each other, talking to each other. There's a lot of fun stuff you could build with this. And again, completeness, vision, and simplicity. And it's a $500 prize at the end of this. So I am so excited to be building the future of the machine-human interface with you. That, to me, is the scale of what we're doing here. To be able to let anybody use a computer. When you learn to code, it's like a superpower that you get. It's like, it was probably the biggest moment in my life where I just believed in myself suddenly. And I saw the world. I was like, things work and humans built them. And if we do this right, we can get billions of people to have that feeling, to create natural language programmers. We can have people who are controlling systems because when they talk to it in their native language, it is being turned into the logical, deterministic, syntactically correct code that it takes to run that system. And all these tools that incredible people have been building that are available to 0.0.5%. There's 2 points in that, which is the number of people that know how to code. It can be 100%. It can be billions of people that can use a computer the way that you and I do. So I'm so excited to be doing this with you, and I can't wait to get you on the phone. I hope some calls get booked with me. I'd have a lot of fun with that. I think that's all I got. And I think, Haneen, let's let the hackathon begin. I noticed too, we have 3 minutes. I think we were going to do a Q&A, which I'm totally down to do. I have as much time as anybody wants, but I think we only have 2 minutes.
Yeah. Now. Actually, I would love for us to do some Q&A because this is one of a really interesting technologies. So for the people watching us, please ask all your questions in the chat so we can answer them. And feel free to ask anything. We have Killian here with us. So yeah, it's an opportunity. Put it all here. I see we had some questions. I'm not sure if you answered them previously. One person was asking about security, if I find this question. So Yeah, I'm excited, but I think you are disregarding the security and privacy concern. It opens such an attack surface, at least how you're presenting it on the 10th. So what would you, did you answer it?
It is probably the most, this is a powerful tool. It's as powerful as your terminal. And if you this is so interesting. And I kind of want to, let me touch on this, because this has been a lot of what we've talked about, especially as thinking about opening up to people who are non-technical and making like a desktop app that people could use without having to install the package. Really important that we get this right. So thank you. This is arbitrary code execution. It is not safe. You are right. This is a dangerous thing to be doing. There are a few ways we can address this. First of all is the idea of limiting the amount of functions they can run. That's an easy one. Putting it into more of a sandbox and just letting it run a limited set of functions. But I want to think more about these kind of ways of addressing it. One, in a way, this is an alignment issue. Open up GPT-4 with Open Interpreter. I'd even do it right now. And I'm going to say delete everything on my computer.
I close the camera.
See this? I can't assist with that because this is a malicious request. In a way, and this all depends. By the way, one thing we didn't even get into was that you can run these things locally. But right now, I think that the best way to use GPT or to use Open Interpreters with GPT-4, it's the most powerful, most aligned model I know of. It's expensive, and we just put out the local update, which uses Ooba Booga in the background to run this fully locally. Right now, with this one with GPT-4, it is actually beaming it out to OpenAI and getting the language model to run it, but then it runs the code locally. But you can run this thing fully locally. I mean, it actually uses Mistral to do that, which is not an aligned model. And if I ask it to delete my computer, it will. Oh, wait. Interpreter -- local. Sorry, command. I think I didn't update. Yeah. So it uses Mistral 7B. So you can run that same thing, interpreter -- local, and it will download Mistral and it will use it on your computer. Alignment. This is an alignment problem in some senses. Let's just say, I by the way, this is another way that we get to do this is that right now it's running in a mode where every time it runs a code block, I actually have to approve it. So that's another protection. But that's only for people who know code. If you don't know code, you're looking at a code block, you're like, I don't know. You can actually run it in. See, it's so slow when it's run locally. No, if you want, there's this guy Eric Allen who I think is a genius who's been building from the very beginning safety features into Open Interpreter. You can run interpreter -- safe ask, I think is what it is, and what that does is it will actually scan the code with some, I think, Datadog software. It's like SemGrep or something. And soon we're going to have it actually install packages that it tries to install. It's going to scan them first. This is a huge, huge question. And honestly, anybody who kind of can keep thinking about this and go down this road in the hackathon, I will be very, very interested because it's really important that this is safe, especially as we get out of different people's systems. Somebody made a version of this too that runs all of it in Docker. So that's another level of protection. It's an alignment thing. The language model can refuse it. Giving user confirmation is a way that we can protect people against running unsafe code. Scanning it and building stuff like interpreter -- safe. And then, containerization of some kind. So actually, there's some drawbacks to that because then I can't ask like how many files are on my desktop if it's running in a container. But you could make something that you can then drag files into or something. So yeah, to me, great question. Super important to be thinking about security. But we're really early. We're a month into this. But I'm already really impressed with how far the community has come in building security features around this.
All right. So thank you so much, Killian, for answering this question. Since we have 15 minutes left, so let's run through a few questions. And I think that we have like around 4 or 5 questions, so we can manage to get them around that time. We have another one by the person who asked about the security, Lipter one. He was asking, what are the most complex or daily driver function you've leveraged Open Interpreter for? I need to learn how to spell interpreter, by the way.
Me too. Yeah, those are terrible. It's great too because I literally named it Open Interpreter, and then I swear to God, like 2 days later, OpenAI changed it to Advanced Data Analytics, which is the product it was named after. So I named it after Code Interpreter, which is the OpenAI product. Then they renamed it.
Yeah, because everybody's probably stuttering like me. Like I'm like Open Interpreter. Okay. Yeah, so they're asking that question of what are the most complex or daily driver function you've leveraged Open Interpreter for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm also going to show you real quick scanning code. So this is the scan code feature. Would you like to scan this code? Yes. It's obviously just fizz-buzz. It's not going to have anything wrong with it, but this is just one of the security features that's built in. No issues were found in this Python code. I would honestly say that to me, the music video might be, to me, media manipulation is this incredibly complex task. And I imagine, it's interesting because when you have such a general purpose technology, you have a very different set of problems. Every day, and this answer is being updated because so much of what is impressive about the same as ChatGPT is in how people use it and how people talk about, how people share what they're doing with it. So if we go to the demo, to me, probably the most impressive thing I saw it do, and I did this before I even released this, and I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. I'd like your help in making a TikTok clip of this. So this is media stuff. I was working for podcasts in Texas, was what my job was before this. So I made a lot of TikTok clips, and that was my job, was kind of like content creator, kind of. I mean, it wasn't me in the clips, but So that's how I knew how to apply this technology. And when I say, can you make me a TikTok clip of this? And I want you to take this particular clip, but then I actually want you to follow the face. So this is something that, like, if I was in, you can learn how to do Premiere and to do this, and it doesn't take too much time. But without having Premiere for free, this thing figured out how to do it. Downloads the video, grabs the start time and end time, loads it, uses, what is this library? Detector, some face detection library, blah, blah, blah. By the way, it runs into problems. I want you to think about this too as you're using it. It is meant to error. That is a feature. To me, if you are not writing your code as a programmer and running it and erroring, then you're not learning fast enough. And this thing is, the way that it works is it errors and it finds the edges of reality by erroring. And it goes a little further down the hallway of the things it can do by bumping up against the edges and erroring. So expect it to error. I love it when it errors, and that's why I left it in here. So it's trying, and it does it. And this is the output.
Ultimately, it comes down to taste. It comes down to taste. It comes down to trying.
It's following the face. It's clipped it to that. That's amazing. That, to me, that would be so complicated for me to do that. You could. That to me is maybe one of the most magical things that I saw, just because it was something I was doing in my job. But the thing is that I've seen product managers use it, and they use it in a totally different way. I've seen industrial design people use it; they use it in a totally different way. And data scientists, people love it because the idea of local execution means that you can have total private code interpreter experience. That we haven't even begun to crack into that. And this is going to depend on what you've done in your life and what you think of as kind of just stuff you hate doing in your job. I hated doing this, making all these TikTok clips. And, I'm not doing that job anymore, so it's not that helpful anymore. But, Sangman, who did that one where it's that, but also translated to Japanese. And I mean, look at this video that it made for him. And that's with one command. So I think media manipulation is to me the most interesting, but I think that's because of where I'm from. And it's going to be different for everybody. Did you say we had until 15, was it?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay. So I believe you answered that question. Okay, we have a question. He says, or she. Wait, let me find it. Yeah, on how to tell Open Interpreter that it already has Chromium, or do you have recommended web scrapers we should use for best results?
This is a great question. Okay. So this is actually then a fair excuse. I'm just going to real quick pull this up. I know we don't have much time. I had this so much. This was a pain. This sucks. This is like the part of Open Interpreter that I hope we can figure out to solve.
I can see this excited you, so don't worry. Take as much time.
Okay. It's that, it uses GPT-4, right? Or it uses Mistral, or you can actually put in any Hugging Face model that you want. You just do -- local and then the Hugging Face repo ID. You can see in the docs how to do that. You'll download the model and it'll run it with Ooba Booga. But it does not usually, unless it's one of these newer models that's been trained up to date, there's plenty of stuff that's missing from its training data, including sometimes breaking changes in how some libraries are used. So, for example, anytime I asked this thing to use Selenium, it would try to install a Chrome driver. And that's not how Selenium works anymore. So how do we solve that problem? Now, obviously, at some, in the future, it's going to be because these language models have more up-to-date training data. But in the interim, and what the kind of crazy stuff this opens up is retrieval augmented generation. It's the idea that, so this is what we actually did last night, was expose this so that you could play with this, because I knew someone would ask this question, because it's and literally it's right here. But up-to-date instructions about how to use Selenium, because it is always installing Chrome WebDriver. We have exposed this thing called procedures, which was in the original Open Interpreter, which is semantically searching a tiny database of coding tutorials called Open Procedures. And this includes up-to-date code snippets about how to run certain packages. So it is actually semantically searching those and trying to use it. And this could be way improved. This is just the first step of improving this problem. Sometimes it semantically searches it and finds it correctly and it can use Selenium magically. Sometimes, especially if the first message is too complex and doesn't dwell on it, it won't semantically search that properly because it just uses the last two messages to query this database. But you can put your own stuff in it too. So here, and again, this is right on the repo, how to change what Open Interpreter knows. You can pass in a little list of code snippets here. So this is how to use TinyDB. So you can imagine this is like an obscure library, Pine something. Someone was trying to use it with some financial analysis language that was really obscure. And you could just tell it that, put it in interpreter.procedures. This list will be semantically queried. Again, we take the last two messages and we put them into this query and we say, what is the most relevant, 10 or whatever procedures that's customizable. And it puts it into the system message so that it's like, oh, okay, well, I see these things up here. So that's kind of like, you can think of this as like an extended version of the interpreter.system message that can be really long. I mean, interpreter procedures is extraordinarily long. There's tons of them in there. And it's just going to find the most relevant ones and put it into the system message. So that's a little bit of retrieval augmented generation that's built in for you to just start playing with it. And by the way, so I also show there's another way of doing this too, which is as you're streaming it, you can actually swap out things in the system message. So here I say, what time is it? And I've built its system message will dynamically have the time. And then there's a way too where you can actually replace the whole way that it even generates its system message and totally just gut this thing and put in your own retrieval augmented generation system, put in your own just anything by just simply resetting this function interpreter.generate system message. So as long as this thing can return a string, which is a system message, then you can reset it. So in this case, we actually have it get some dynamic info, which is the packages that are installed, so that it doesn't keep trying to reinstall the package. So this, before it even starts writing a message, we have retrieved the packages that the user has that are semantically searched, again, most relevant to the current task. And that's up there. So I say, do I have any good data science packages installed? And it says yes, because this was semantically searched against all the packages I had installed, put into the system message, and then it has access to that. So changing what it knows, and you can imagine the ways you could take this. I want it to have a documentation of some kind. I want it to have knowledge of my user's computer. We actually already, you can see in the system edge, we actually pump in the oh no, it wouldn't be here, but we pump in the user's username and operating system and the current working directory. So it already knows those things, just default Open Interpreter. And that's an example of kind of the dynamic stuff you can start to fit into this thing to get it to know more and know, for example, to not install Webpack with Selenium. So that's a really exciting front to be working on. And I think we can take it further, and maybe you'll take it further.
Okay, so that was really great, Killian. So we will have just our last question, and with this, we will end our call and our amazing session with you. So the last question is asking Killian, if I want to give it access to football data or other data, I just use it to RAG-based approach, or put all the data in a vector database with LangChain or Llama index. Also, I cannot access the RAG collab because of permissions.
Oh, does it have bad permissions? Thank you actually so much for saying that. Share. Oh my God, you're right. Oh, thank you. You saved me. Okay, now you can access it. Yeah. So this is one way to do it, is to put it into procedures. You can use this kind of built-in thing. It's pretty rudimentary. It's just a list of strings, and we embed those strings. You can imagine better approaches to this being done by like overriding the system message generator. So to make this thing return a string of the best stuff. But honestly, I'm more interested in like, that's all like this back stuff of like dealing with the system message that goes into this thing. I'm more interested in like, okay, can this thing use systems, including something that searches for football data? So I would actually recommend you just make a function that does that. And yeah, use LangChain, Llama index, or anything you're comfortable with. And then put in the system message, which again, you can update the static system message really, really easily. Actually, it's right here. This is really easy. So you could update this thing and tell it to only use a particular programming language or do whatever. And you can explore this and see what I got going on in there in the default one. But you could just say, hey, you're going to help me find some football data. So please use this function that I just wrote to do that. And paste in the function so that it knows to be used now. I think that there's some there's some work to be done on, can we get this thing to use, I think, exec, because right now it spawns it in a different process. So I'm pretty sure that the way that it would access that function, you might want to save it to a file and tell it where to find that file. But we want to make it so that it's actually running exec, so that it's running in your same Python session. Right now it starts a new one, but that'd be a great way to do it, or to use procedures and to update the system message dynamically. But yeah, I'm kind of most interested in like, just tell it to use a particular tool, and then just have it query it for whatever information it wants. Because then you could ask something really complicated, and it would only take the little part that it needs to query that data and put it into the function and use the system that you built. Yeah, I think there's a lot of approaches about how to change what it knows, and I hope that opened it up to the collab. Okay. Do we have more?
Sorry, I was speaking all this time and I just noticed that I'm on it. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, I was saying that, Killian, thank you so much. This was such an amazing session. I personally enjoyed it so much. And everything was in such simple terms, easy. So really amazing session. Yeah, we can actually have 5 more minutes if you'd like to say anything to close with it.
I would just say that I feel so lucky to be involved in this project. This is open source project. This is for, And I hope that local models get there so we can really explore the full edges of this. But we're at the beginning of this thing. You are going to be blown away by how early you were. You're going to be telling people, like your kids and your grandkids, like, what? Like, it's literally like being here in the first year, 2 years of the internet, like bigger.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And we have a shot here at altering the trajectory of this technology and doing it in an open way and democratizing it and making it so that, if we could really get it working properly, and Mistral is a great step in this direction, the best step I've seen so far. I think there's a hackathon coming up for Mistral, by the way. The package, by the way, UBA, you might want to check into the code. It's on my repo too, is sets up Mistral with Uba Booga on tons of people's, on a lot of different architectures. So if you want to be playing with Mistral for free, you can even set it up in a Colab notebook and be running Mistral in a Colab notebook. You're not even paying for the hardware. No less than API key. But we have the chance here to make something that anybody can access and can see how it works. And it is going to be by being so early, it's also the most important time to be making these decisions about how we want this technology to be built. Because, we have the history of computers to think about this on with, there was an idealism that was built into the early days of computers, and then all kinds of forces that made that change. We can look ahead, and by participating and by hacking with it now, and by trying to build something with it and understanding it, I've had people be like, this is so scary to me because, you think about what this could do to society to have these things take so much intellectual work from us. The only thing I would just so above anything else, what I'm trying to do, what I think the best people are recommending to do, and is to just keep learning and to keep building with these things and understand how they work and to just be right there using them. That's what I'd say. And that's Lab to me embodies that so perfectly, because they are trying so hard to try to get these people together. They're just total leaders in this that I've seen is like, okay, let's go, let's build, let's hack. And I'm so happy to be involved in it. And yeah, that's what I'd say is just
Killian, this is really great. Thank you so much. And this is actually the core of Lab. And there's a lot of more even educational nonprofit things are coming up to help AI in other unprivileged places. So really, this is our core, is to learn, to build, to grow together. And this is why we have one of the greatest, I believe, AI communities I personally ever experienced. I always say we are who we are just because of our great community. Everyone helps each other. Everyone builds with each other. So out of a great community, we managed to find Killian, who actually is now hosting one of our hackathons. So thank you so much, Killian, for this amazing session. This was really great. And officially, the kickoff has started. So please, everyone, go build, start building, and wishing you a great week and a great day to build, because everybody has 24 hours, right? So 24 hours, and let's show your talents.
Oh, how do people call me, by the way? Is there a way to set that up? Should I just send you a calendar link or something? Because I'd love to talk to people.
I think it would be better to set a calendar link, and from there we can share it with other resources. So if you can also please share us the links and everything, and we can just all put it in the Open Hack channel. And we also have that channel so you can communicate with our community and the people building as well.
I love it. Okay, thank you so much, Neen, and thank you, Lab, for inviting me. Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you so much, and everybody, get to building, and see you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. That was great. Thank you so much, Ismail, for...
I don't know what happened, but yes.
No, I just wanted to talk